Nora, and to everyone who's involved with creating this sacred space this morning. I'm so happy to get to be with you. It's a silver lining in a hard time that I can come from Texas to New York. And I'd also like to thank my colleague, Reverend Josh. We were in the same ministerial cluster here in Central Texas for a time, and I'm grateful for his invitation to the virtual pulpit. So this morning, I'd like to share with you some opening words from Elandria Williams. E. Williams served as the co-moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association from August 2017 to June 2020, the highest volunteer role in our movement. They were an incomparable leader, joyous presence, and indomitable force in Unitarian Universalism, a Black UU raised in our faith. And if you are unfamiliar with the name Elandria Williams, or even if you are, I recommend that you look them up after the service. And there's an article about their legacy in UU World in the most recent issue. Sadly, Elandria passed away last year at age 41. These words are an excerpt of We Are Worthy. We are worthy, not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. We are divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer. You are not worthy because of what is in your mind, not for the support you give others, not for what you give at all. We are worthy and are whole just because. In that spirit of worthiness and wholeness, of divine light and sacred dark, welcome to worship today. And I want to add my thanks to all of you for the creation and the nurturing and the continuing of this spiritual home, particularly during the past year plus. We need these spaces and these places now more than ever. And as I come to you from my shed in the backyard, I like to call it my sparkle shed in Austin, Texas, we find that these places to lay our burdens down and share them and to amplify our joys are not just physical, but really, truly spiritual connections that we have. So I thank all of you who have been doing the hard work of making Zoom church happen. It is such a joy to get to be with you. So we're going to move into more music and then the sermon, and they kind of go together. The anthem that you're going to get to sing along, dance along, I hope, a little bit with, is called The World's on Fire and We Still Fall in Love. And it's been my theme song for a few years. Believe it or not, I wrote it in 2018, and unfortunately, it's only gained significance over time. The video that you're going to see is the very first video that my band, Parker Woodland, put together. And we're called Parker Woodland because we're neighbors. We're part of a community. We all have kids in third grade together. When we first started, it was first grade. So we used to jokingly call our band first grade dads. Everybody was a first grade dad but me. And so Parker Woodland is the name of an intersection where we all live, Parker and Woodland. And so this band celebrates community and celebrates neighbors. I like to say it's not cleanliness that's next to godliness, it's neighborliness. And so you're going to see that in this video. One of my favorite memories of shooting this video is that I asked one of the neighbors, another mom, how much should I clean my house before I invite everybody over to shoot this party that's going to be the video? Because I was so tired. And she said, not at all. Don't clean your house at all. And it was the greatest relief to be given permission just to show up as you are, to not have to put on a facade, to not have to shove things in a closet. She said it's supposed to look like a party, it's supposed to look like people live there. So I invite you into the spirit of letting people in just as you are and just as they are. And I hope that we as Unitarian Universalists are that kind of community where people can show up just as they are. And then I have two spiritual questions for you as you watch this video, and then we're going to get into it more in the sermon. Number one, What are your joy practices? You're going to see in this video a lot of joy practices: bubbles, wigs, dancing, hugs, pancakes, all kinds of stuff. And I invite you to think about, if this were a video of your community, what fun things would be represented? And then the other question is, who would be there? Because what you're about to see is the last time that I had my community in my home before the pandemic shut down. It is the last time that my band played together. And we didn't know that it was going to be the last time. And we never know when it's going to be the last time or when it's going to be put on hold. So I want you to think about your joy and who should be in the document of a very special time in your life, and then we're going to talk about it more together. But I invite you to sing along, dance along. It's going to start loud. This is the punk rock version, the punk rock interlude of our service. The world's on fire, and we still fall in love. Enjoy. Catch myself wanting to leave at night. Think I can take a risk this time. It's a hard time to look for hope, but not. Truth can feel like a joke or worse. They tell you it's your fault if you try. World's on fire, but still fall apart. World's on fire, but still fall apart. World's on fire, we're not giving up. All right, so I don't know if you could hear it or if you had sound issues like I did, but I put a link in the chat for you so that you're welcome to listen later and see the lyrics, but hopefully you got the spirit of the situation. Thank you so much to our team. And what I told folks when we did a tech rehearsal is that the glitches of Zoom are where the divine comes in, where we have the chances to be surprised by life in a time when things have been kind of monotonous. I don't know about you. So I welcome those little surprises in life these days. I'd like to share with you a quote from the Indian author and activist Arundhati Roy. She writes, historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. Amen. I love that quote. And I love that phrase, little luggage. I've put it in my medicine kit, just like Melanie DeMore says about Shine On Me. Put it in your medicine kit. I've been thinking during this time about what are those things that are spiritual medicine for us, can we keep it handy right there next to us when we need it? And so in that video, The World's on Fire and We Still Fall in Love, there were some things that maybe not so profound, a messy wig, some bubbles, some fast pancakes on a plug-in griddle. You know, that's not a big thing, but those are little things that can inject joy into your life. And so I've been clinging to those in the past 14 months as a mom, home with 2 kids in the pandemic, as someone whose whole being has been about bringing people together. Before the shutdown, I was teaching Zumba as a spiritual practice in person. I was bringing people together with my indie rock band in person. I was going to church in person. And I was a director at the YMCA, which is all about getting together in person. And so it has been a radical adjustment coming through this portal for me. And so I know we've all experienced this time in different ways. And so for any of you for whom it has been a radical adjustment, you are not alone. And for others of us, we've had maybe the downtime that we have craved and didn't know how to claim, and many things in between. And so I just want to invite us today to think about, as we're sort of emerging, we're in year 2, it's not over, but it's different as more people get vaccinated. What pieces of joy, what things that got us through can we make sure that we bring through the portal with us? And then what can we leave back there? I hope more than anything that as you think about those things that you're bringing, that you be invitational about them, that you share them. Because one of the hardest things about this time has been to feel cut off from each other. Austin is the live music capital of the world, or so we've said. And so it has been just spiritually heartbreaking for the many, many, many of us who root our lives in live music, to be cut off from playing together. And those of you who might be in choir or do other kinds of music in person, to be cut off from something like singing, to be told that singing is one of the riskiest things we could do, how heartbreaking has that been? So I also want to say that to be with you and to get to share my music across the miles is such an incredible silver lining. Did you see those kids in the video putting finger paint all over my big glass doors? I did not wash that paint off for 6 months. I let it bake in the Texas sun. It was a reminder of those people that I love in that video. Some of them have had COVID. Some of them have gone through divorce this year. Some of them I haven't seen in person since we shot that video. Some of them are thriving. You know, the world is on fire and we still fall in love. There are many things, many truths at once, but I kept that paint for a long time because I needed something. And I bet there are those of you who are clinging to something to help you remember someone you love, someone you maybe haven't seen. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And when I finally asked my mom to come over and help me wash those windows, it was the greatest release. And I could see, I wasn't expecting this. I thought we were just cleaning the windows, right? Sometimes you do this. You think you're just cleaning the windows. And then the light that came in, the view of the world again, the way my living room lit up again. So it was such a symbol to me that we can cling to things and they can serve us for a while. And then maybe at some point we can let them go and make room for something new. In that spirit, I want to read to you this poem from the Austro-Hungarian poet Rainer Maria Rilke, who wrote in German, and this is translated to English. It's called Go to the Limits of Your Longing. And a friend sent it to me early in the pandemic because I was grieving hard. I felt like I had lost everything. In August, around the time that we washed off those windows, my job was eliminated with the YMCA, along with about 75% of the jobs, because so many people had lost their jobs, and so they had canceled their YMCA memberships, and nobody was sending their kids to camps or programs. So there was very little money. And so my job as a chaplain and a director of social responsibility and community engagement was eliminated. And it felt kind of like the last straw. So many times I felt like I had been sent to the limits of my longing, and then I would be sent further. And I imagine maybe some of you understand that feeling too. So my friend sent me this poem because she knew I was grieving, and it has a line in it: "No feeling is final." That's why she sent it to me, but there's some other really good stuff in here. So I'm going to share it with you, and then we're going to talk about it. Want to take a breath with me? And we'll receive the spirit and the wisdom of Rilke. God speaks to us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand. Now, I've been visiting about 80 congregations over the last 6 months, and often, as I have felt today, still choked up by these words, every line of it. Give me your hand. Do we not know now more than ever what a gift not to be taken for granted it is to hold the hand of someone you love? The country they call life, you will know it by its seriousness. Yes. I feel like in this year, with the election, with the insurrection at the Capitol, with the threats to voting rights, with all of this, boy, the seriousness of this country and this country we call life, I have felt it so deeply. And however you connect to the word God, whatever your sense of the divine, of the ground of being, of the truth in your bones, Rilke's vision for the divine is that when we are sent out beyond what we even think we can handle, there we are, embodying God, embodying the divine. And here's the world on fire where we still fall in love. Flare up like a flame, she says, she, the divine, they. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. There is the message that I needed this year and that I have clung to. That there in the dark, there in the shadows, there is the divine moving with me, moving with us. I never had a hard time sleeping before, but this year I have woken up in the night. I like to joke so that my sad thoughts can have some time for themselves. And to be told that there in that darkness, there is the divine with me has been such a gift. And so where the world is on fire, we cast these shadows, and in those shadows is where there is time for learning, for growth, for reflection, for figuring out what we're going to bring through the portal, for actually pausing and asking what matters. So one of the things that I want to bring through the portal with me, courtesy of Rilke and courtesy of the many teachings of folks who are doing anti-racism work, who are doing the work to celebrate Blackness and brownness around the world in our congregations, is this idea that in the darkness is the divine. And to think about darkness, as Alandria Williams said, that we are whole and worthy just because we are divine bodies of light and dark. To let go, to leave behind me as I come through the portal, the metaphors where light is good and dark is bad. To remember that in the darkness, what is darkness? The womb, where life is born, where those babies that are now 21 and 32 and all of that, they were nurtured and grown in the darkness of the womb. For those of us who are gardeners, and I heard that we have some gardeners in this congregation, in the soil, the darkness of the soil is where the seeds are breaking apart, not in destruction, but in growth, in becoming the fullness of who they really are. In the darkness of the sky is where the moon and the stars that I've looked to so much over these past 14, 15 months, that's where they are to shine. And so one of the things I want to bring through the portal, along with poetry, along with rock and roll, along with bubbles and wigs, is positive religious language around darkness. And one of my favorites, just that I try to memorize, I've heard Reverend Meg Barnhouse, one of my friends and mentors here in Austin, she's the senior minister of First UU in Austin, has said, divine light and sacred dark. So if you take anything out of this service, just take that phrase, divine light and sacred dark, and put it in your medicine kit so that we don't just always default to a positive, negative binary around light and dark. Divine light and sacred dark. I also want to take something to remember from this poem, where it says, no feeling is final. For a long time, I clung to the idea that no feeling is final, meaning if you're sad, if you're depressed, if you're grieving, that won't last forever. And I love that, and I save it because I need it. No feeling is final. The joy cometh in the morning, you know, from the Psalms. That's what this stole is for me. And what I've realized as I've watched that World's on Fire music video over and over with congregation is to remember this. Joy also isn't final, which sounds like a downer, but here's what I mean. We should savor our joy when we feel it. So many times we hide our light under a bushel because we know that others are suffering and we feel like we would be rubbing it in or something, that we're having a good day, or we feel like we're having a good life, or whatever it is. But you don't know when it's the last time your band's going to play in your garage. You don't know when it's the last time your kids are going to have their friends over to jump on the trampoline before a pandemic strikes. And you don't know. Life is short and fleeting and fragile, just as it is long. You don't know when you might lose somebody, or something might radically change. Your job might be eliminated. You just don't know. So savor your joy, amplify your joy, share your joy, invite people into your joy. No feeling is final goes both ways. So I just want to invite you to consider ways that you could share your joy with others. And let me tell you, one of the places you can do that is simply by inviting people to church. I know UUs are a little averse to that. We like to joke in these neck of the woods that we like to put our churches on a dead end street with no sign. But don't do that, please. Invite people. If you can have a minister come from Texas, you can invite your friends in Croatia to come to church. And so what if they only come once? If they get a taste of what it means to have a community that will hold their joys and sorrows with them, and then they feel that, and then they go look for it in person when they're ready where they live, beautiful, beautiful. Invite everyone into your joy. People need it. All right, last thing on that note, to help you think about what your joys are, is I have a little scripture for you. This is the Poverty and Justice Bible. I grew up UU with very little Bible exposure, very little. And since I wanted to be an interfaith chaplain and I wanted to serve in anti-racism and justice work everywhere I went out in the community, I knew that I needed to have more literacy in all kinds of faiths. And so I heard that the Reverend Dr. William Barber, one of our great justice seekers in this country, used this Poverty and Justice Bible. And I said, well, I'm getting that one. And I love highlighting books. That is like one of my favorite things in the whole wide world to do. But this book comes already highlighted, I don't know, with sections that relate to poverty and justice. And so I know that you as Unitarian Universalist people of faith are probably quite interested in those topics. So I commend this version to you. But what we're going to read today is a small excerpt of Exodus, which the feminist scholar Carol Myers has described as possibly the most important book of the Bible. It is to me. And you probably know the story. The Israelites are on a long, hard journey to the promised land, through the desert, through the wilderness. And I just invite you to relate to this piece from whatever place you're coming from, whether it's ancestors who've experienced slavery, whether it's ancestors who may have enslaved others, whether it's a mix of those, a relationship to other elements of enslavement, the prison industrial complex that is modern slavery in our lifetime. Take a breath with me. And this is the Song of Miriam, chapter 16, verses 19 to 21. After the Israelites had walked safely through on dry ground, Miriam, the sister of Erin, was a prophet. So she took her tambourine and led the other women out to dance and play their tambourines. Then she sang to them. When someone sent this piece to me, I tell you, it was a lifeline and a connection. Many Unitarian Universalists are really into words. I was a journalist before I was a minister, so I like to say I'm a word nerd. I want to draw your attention to a 2-letter word in here. So, Miriam was a prophet, so she took her tambourine. Not Miriam was a prophet, and by the way, she had a tambourine. Not Miriam was a prophet and they tolerated her tambourine. Miriam was a prophet, so she took her tambourine and the women went out to sing and to dance. In the hardest journey of their lives, they sang and they danced. And my friend Mandy McGlynn, who I went to seminary with, in a poem that she wrote, talks not just about the fact that they did this, that they saved energy to sing and to dance, that they didn't let what they had been through stop them from singing and dancing, quite the opposite. But she also mentions the great care that those women must have had to take in this story to pack tambourines silently, to sneak out. How do they do it? With such great care. And how much must they have prioritized joy to pack tambourines for this journey? So I just ask you, people of faith on a very long, hard journey through a portal, what is your tambourine? What is your instrument of joy? Have you packed it? Are you sharing it? Are you inviting others in? I hope that you will, and I hope that you will do it even more as we move into this new phase of our lives. You are needed, and your joy is needed. Blessed be. Speaking of which, I do believe from here, we will go into pretty much my all-time favorite hymn. My Life Flows On in Endless Song, also known as How Can I Keep From Singing? And you'll see in this version a virtual choir and orchestra and experience the joy of creativity that people have done amazing things during this time. I invite you to sing along.